Welcome to It's a New Day. My name is James Young. And today my guest is?
I'm Jeanette Batiste, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Foodlink.
Okay. Are you originally from Rochester?
I'm not originally from Rochester.
Okay, well, we won't hold that against you.
Thank you.
How long have you been here?
I've been here just over 4 years,
Okay.
actually. My husband and I moved here and had really never been here before, but really find it an amazing place to live. So really enjoyed it.
Well, let me just sidetrack for a minute.
Yeah.
What do you find amazing? Because I'm always amazed when people move here from somewhere else. Those of us that were born here, I mean, we're just stuck here unless we get out of here. But I'm always amazed when I find out people come here, and I guess what amazes me is because it can be extremely cold here. We can have these brutal winters here.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what really sticks in my mind. So what was it? Was it the job, or were there other things that brought you here?
Well, it's interesting how life unfolds, and you sort of walk through doors not knowing what's going to come next. But I moved to Malawi, which is sub-Saharan Africa, and I stayed there for almost 7 years. And while I was there, my dad was active duty military. My parents moved to Rochester. So my husband and I were moving back from Malawi, and they said, come to Rochester. You're going to love it here. It'll just be great. You're just going to love Rochester. So we said, okay, fine, we'll try Rochester. And I went to 3 high schools. We were all over the place. We moved all the time. And so to me, it was like, just try a new spot. So we did, and we've stayed here for 4 years now, and have really no intention of leaving. So to your question about what's nice about it, one of the things that shocked me most about Rochester, they always say there's 0 degrees of separation in Rochester.
Yes.
And after being here for a while, I start to truly understand that it's a big city, but it's still very small in terms of the way people engage with each other and the way people know each other. And I've really admired that. There's a lot of wonderful things happening here. Rochester's the first in so many ways. And while there are a lot of challenges here, we spoke earlier before the show about some of the societal challenges here in Rochester, but a lot of really wonderful things, wonderful people working on making change, and it's very exciting.
But seriously, I mean, Rochester truly does have some great history.
It does.
As you know, Susan B. Anthony,
Frederick Douglass.
We have other great people from history that have done some great things. And then just straight ordinary people. It's really an amazing place here for a communal engagement kind of environment.
Absolutely.
Well, please tell us about Foodlink. How long has
Yeah.
Foodlink been around? What it is that they do? Please give us some insight to what they do.
Okay. Well, Foodlink is the regional food bank, and we serve central western New York. We actually serve 10 counties. We go all the way down to Allegheny County. Obviously, most of our activity is in Rochester just because of population density compared to some of our rural counties, but we do serve a 10-county area. We are one of 202 food banks in this country. And collectively, the food banks across the United States serve every single county in the United States. And we're all members to Feeding America, which is our national affiliate organization. They're based out of Chicago. So Foodlink started almost 35 years ago. And our executive director now, Tom Ferraro, is the founder. And he started he was a man on a mission, and he identified a need and he identified a supply, and he brought those two things together. And he said, look, there's so much surplus food in this country. There's no reason anyone should go hungry. And actually, Foodlink started as a program of ABC before it grew into be its own nonprofit, its own 501c3. And so today, if you ever come, we just moved. We were originally on Exchange Street, and we just moved our distribution facility to Mount Read Boulevard, 1999 Mount Read Boulevard. We're there, and we're a food distribution at heart. If you come in, we look just like any other food distribution, but our sole purpose for existing is to ensure that the soup kitchens and the pantries and the shelters have enough food on their shelves to serve their community.
Would you explain the difference between a food bank and a food pantry?
Absolutely, and that's a really great question because a lot of times those words, even by media, are used interchangeably. And a food pantry or a community cupboard is what you would imagine inside a church basement, where a place that has, where individual clients can come in and access a bag of food and take it home. And a food bank, which is Foodlink, is truly, we are a 70,000 square foot warehouse. We rack 3 pallets high. We have large distribution equipment like fork trucks and other material handling equipment. We have a fleet of 9 trucks. So we really are a distribution center. When I say we're a distribution center, we really are, it's truly our capacity. So one of the major differences in why a food bank needs to exist even, so if there's a manufacturer in upstate New York, let's say Dr. Pepper Snapple Mott's has an overrun of applesauce, or Barilla, which is also in our service area nearby, has an overrun of pasta. And they might call us and say, we've got 20 pallets of pasta, come get it. Well, we have the infrastructure to go get that, where a soup kitchen or a pantry can't handle 20 pallets of pasta. They would say, I can't handle that. So we can take all 20 pallets, and the donor doesn't want to hear, oh, I can't take all 20, I can only take 15, or they want to know that you're going to take it all, you're going to handle it according to ag and market standards, you're going to maintain all food safety standards, you're going to maintain the cold chain if need be, if it's refrigerated or frozen product. So we can guarantee that to the donor. We carry the liability insurance all the way to the end user, and then once we get those, say, 20 pallets of pasta, we distribute it then to our network of providers. Just the quantity they need. So one pantry might say, well, I only need 10 cases of that, so we handle all those logistics.
I see, for instance, at Lily's Cafe,
right,
they come in with prepared food.
Yes.
Is this food cooked at that facility as well, or is this cooked in another place?
No, that's true, and that's a great point of differentiation. So there's our food bank, which is what we're most known for many times. We also have a kitchen, which is right now located on Joseph Ave. It's an industrial-sized kitchen. It's about 13,000 square feet, and we do about 3,000 meals every day out of that kitchen. We deliver those meals hot. They're cooked across the city of Rochester. Most of our meals go to after-school programs. So any other organization that's running an after-school enrichment program, the kids are coming in maybe 3 o'clock. They had lunch last night. Most kids, when they get out of school, they're hungry. So they got to go to an enrichment program, but they want to eat a snack or they want to have maybe a bite of dinner before they sit down to do their homework with their tutors. And so, we bring those meals to no charge to that program. We have funding through Department of Health that allows us to do that. But we also, you mentioned Lily's Cafe, that's a senior program, and we bring the meals. That's our first time actually doing senior meals. A little bit different in terms of portion and nutrients. Kids obviously don't need the same nutrients that seniors need, so we have dietitians that work on the menu planning and the like. But we've been able to serve Lily Cafe for almost a year now.
Well, I'm very glad that you mentioned especially the dietary aspects, because I have a friend of mine that watches the show, and I was going to mention that to you because I know that's the first thing he's going to say to me. Where's the health issues? Where's the dietary part of this?
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, has hunger become a greater problem? I live in a very optimistic world, okay? And I would like to believe that we're getting better as a society and that hunger is not as great as it was at one time. Is that true? Or is it worse, or I don't know, does it remain the same?
Unfortunately, I think it's getting worse. I think that to the optimistic side of things, there are facilities, there are places to go if you're in need of support, if you're facing food insecurity. But our numbers have shown us that the demand has increased, particularly since over the last 5 years. And a lot of that, obviously, with the recession and increased unemployment, and households adjusting to different standards of living, different income levels, adjusting downward. They've had to make hard choices. So we've really went, in 2009, we were doing about 9 million pounds of food. And last year we did over 13 million pounds. I believe this year we might even do more than 15 million pounds of food. So there has been this steady trajectory, steady increase of just food distribution. And we've seen, surprisingly, over the last 5 years, a significant increase in a lot of the suburban communities, Greece, Brockport, Brighton, Pittsford, Gates, Chili, Henrietta. Our suburban communities have almost, in some cases, a 300% increase, which is just absolutely outstanding. And I think that's where, when we talk about people maybe adjusting from a 2-family income to a 1-family income, or taking a job where they are making less than what they were making before, and if you're going to have to move, maybe your mortgage is no longer, that takes time. You don't just do that overnight. And the fortunate thing about food is that it's always the expendable budget. You got to make your mortgage or your rent. You have to make your bills. You got to pay for medicine. You got to put gas in the car. So what happens? At the end of the month, you run out of money to buy food. And so people have been walking into food pantries that have never stepped foot in a food pantry. And we found that it's often families, families with small children, and seniors, actually. Out of all the people we serve about 200,000 individuals every year through our network. About 38% of those are children, and almost 20% are seniors. And so sometimes when the seniors walk in, actually, they're people that have retired. They've worked their whole life. And there are seniors that have walked in and literally cried because they said, I've never imagined that I would ever, need emergency food. And so it's heartbreaking, but we're thankful for the outpouring of support that the community does give Foodlink and all of the emergency food providers to enable us to be able to do this service. And it's our responsibility to ensure that we maintain the dignity of the clients, respect, and kindness, so that way they do not feel that it's in any way sort of a dehumanizing experience to ask for help.
And that is so very important. And at the same time, we are under the impression that when we think of programs like this, that it's basically minorities or inner cities knee deep in poverty. But this recession, this failed economy, these failed policies, economic policies, are devastating communities everywhere.
Yep.
And now, once again, this is proof positive that, wow, that's quite difficult. But once again, the saving grace is, though, is that we do have
we can come
food
together and we can do this. Well, we're gonna get through this.
And that brings the question. Just imagine if there were no Foodlink. You said last year you did something that what was 13.2
million pounds.
13 million pounds of food. Imagine if you didn't have that food, what would have happened to these people? I mean, that's just devastating. And I guess it's devastating because we live in America.
Right.
And we are constantly reminded of this wealth that we have.
Right.
The way that we live as a country. I mean, people are driving these SUVs and all the gas and all the extravagance.
Right.
And then to know that there is this kind of lifestyle in this country, I just find it to be amazing.
It is. It's truly paradoxical. It's hard to get your head around. And what we've seen, especially with the housing bubble collapse and then the economic recession that ensued, people, you talk about the wealth that's in this country, and marketing works, and people are lured by the glamour, the keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, and it's very easy to get over your head in debt here in this country. You can put on a false picture of a certain type of luxury that you live without actually being able to afford it. And so people might have, mortgages that were 30% of their income or more, and that's not sustainable. You can't sustain it. Or you might have cars that multiple vehicles with leases that are more than what your budget should really allow. It's very easy to get in consumer debt. Credit card applications come in left and right. It's very easy to truly get in over your head. And I mean, at no fault to the individual, and maybe at the time when they had that very high mortgage, they could afford that. But so really what we've seen is even the adjusting of standards of living it's a very painful thing to do. You might have to take your kids out of a school district, you have to move, you've got to sell something, that doesn't happen overnight. And so I think we really have to assess our society and ask ourselves even what really matters. We make it the more fancy clothes you have and the bigger house you have and the bigger car you have, that's really what is attractive sometimes in our society, and sometimes that's not all that really matters. And I think sometimes we might want to reassess as a society our priorities.
You mentioned earlier about the dynamics of a person more or less humbling themselves to come in and ask for assistance. Along with them giving the food, is there a little nurturing or something that goes along in the building up the self-esteem of this individual, letting them know because you're coming in here asking for help or receiving some assistance, that this isn't a direct reflection that somehow you failed? And I'm just assuming that should be just as much as a part of giving the food as well, giving them some self-esteem to help them, if nothing help them eat and help digest this with it. There's no, I mean, you're eating the food if you're feeling better about yourself, okay.
Yes, it's a really great question, and our executive director, he always says, hunger's the symptom, it's not the problem. No one woke up hungry one day without having something else happen in their life. And to your point, I think, yes, the providers spend a significant amount of time trying to get at the problem and to troubleshoot with that individual, identify other resources, make referrals, and all to their own capacity. In the city of Rochester, we work with about 60 different emergency providers. And in total, we have about 450 across our 10 counties. But those 60 all have different capacity. Some of them, it might be that it's actually a human service organization like a settlement house, like Baden Street or Community Place or Charles Settlement, where there's actually paid staff that are there that are trained on how to provide case management and work with individuals, make referrals, and so they have a certain capacity to do that. And then you have other faith-based organizations. Actually, about 95% of our network is actually faith-based. And the individuals that are there are often volunteers, and they're there because it's their higher calling to be there, to truly serve. And so the people that are called to do this frontline kind of work of reaching people and helping them work through the incredible difficulties of not being able to feed yourself and your family, it's truly a calling. But everybody has a different strength, and every organization has different strengths and different capacity to do that. I believe that all of our providers do it to the best of their ability. And there is this capacity. We try to bring together our entire network at least once a year, but we do smaller quarterly meetings, whether it be like hot meal meetings or pantry meetings, where we try to bring providers together to exchange best practices, share ideas, learn from each other, because we know that there's a lot that can be shared among and between providers, to help strengthen the network overall.
As well, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm hoping that the viewing audience can truly appreciate that we're talking about more than just food. I mean, yes, this is what you do, this is the service that you provide, but there is a human quality that goes along with this. And I think that when we talk about food banks or even food pantries, but we have a tendency that those that are doing well, those that don't need this service, and people are thinking that there's something wrong with these people, they're lazy, shiftless, whatever those excuses that they make up. And even if that were true, the fact of the matter is that I believe that there will always be a need for a food bank to help people that fall through the cracks. And I just think that FoodLink is right there. And as I said, I wanted the viewing audience to know that we're just talking about more than just delivering food, that there's a whole psychology. I mean, just as you mentioned, I mean, these people just didn't wake up one day and just say, okay, this is where I am.
Right, something happened.
This was a gradual build-up and finally to the point of where they are.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing to know that there is an organization out there like this that not only provides food, but this understanding, that this mentality that goes along with the giving. And because I think that could be just as detrimental sometimes, that we can give things, but if that spirit of giving, if that community spirit of giving is not added into that, I think that's what leads into the abuse. Do you see any abuse with FoodLink? I mean, do you see people that, for instance, that are living in the suburbs?
Living high on the donated food.
I mean, people. The reason why I ask is because I mean, people just. I think it's just because of the nature of people. Somebody always has to try to take advantage. I mean, do you see that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I would be lying to you if I said that. Oh, nobody takes advantage of us. Nobody, because you know, no matter what service provided, I think there's always a certain. When you're serving 200,000 people.
Yes.
The probability of there being an element of abuse, obviously, you know, would be hard to eliminate that. But I would say that we've done a very good job. We do a very good job of minimizing that abuse. And the first line of defense against that abuse would be the individuals, those volunteers I talked of, or those people, those staff people at the settlement houses and some of the other like Salvation Army or human service organizations that work with the individuals on an ongoing basis. And they know who comes in their facility. They start to understand their unique situation, and they can ask questions. And so they're the first ones that'll identify to say, you know, I know you. So I think that our network is strong. It's sometimes hard to, you know, you have to avoid judgment, and that's where it gets challenging, because it's that fine line of protecting our resources for individuals that are truly in need versus judging someone incorrectly. You know, you could say to someone, you don't need assistance, but you don't know anything about their, unless you know something about their personal situation. How do you know they don't need assistance? So it's that dialogue that helps us to better understand the clients, the needs of the clients. And I think it's something that we're always thinking about. We're constantly vigilant. We're looking at ways that we can improve our network, improve our reach, and ensure that the food and the donations we're entrusted with truly go to serving hungry people and not people that want to abuse the system.
I also look at the end users, the people that benefit from these particular services.
Right.
And many times some of the end users are what we as a society, you know, really look unfavorably on, because FoodLink, being a food bank, has the ability to take food to pantries and other distribution points, which now allow for people who are on, if you will, on the outside, the periphery of society, and I'm talking about like your drug addicts.
Right.
Okay. I mean, this is a group of people that no one really wants to deal with, healthcare, and on issues like this. But the reality is that if we don't have facilities like this, I mean, we just can't let these people. It's just hard for me to believe that we could be that callous, and despite the conditions that end users, without being judgmental. And I think that that's the great service that FoodLink is being able to bring to this community, to the country, and that is being able to provide food unconditionally. It sounds like love.
Right. Well, I mean, right. If you're gonna, if you're going to give, like I think you mentioned earlier, you should give with love. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We have some providers that we work with that do address things like drug addiction, that help people work through addictions, that help people that maybe have contracted diseases through the use of intravenous needles and the like to find support. So it's our network, especially in Rochester, is very diverse, and that's the benefit of the referrals. Our agencies can refer clients to each other. So they might say, well, this is really your unique situation, you really should go here, because they're best equipped to assist you given your situation and your challenges. So, and that's really the benefit. I mean, everybody doesn't have to be experts at everything. All of our organizations should not be experts at everything, but if they can refer individuals to one another, then it helps them to really specialize at what they do best. Some people have housing issues, some people have drug addiction, others are victims of domestic violence, others victims of domestic violence with children, small children, or even needing transitional housing, others re-entry, coming back into the workforce from, so how do they get assistance to be able to make a smooth reentry? So there's a lot of different unique circumstances that the individual might face as they try to get back on their feet. And the common thread for all of these individuals is that they're trying to get back on their feet. And so if we can provide the support to give them the resources to be able to do that and the confidence that they can do it, then I think we're building a stronger community.
What are the resources that you utilize or FoodLink utilizes into gathering all this food? Can it be as simple as someone in a neighborhood putting together a couple of cans of food and bringing it, or is that too simple, or are you looking for pallets of food?
Well, when you're doing almost 15 million pounds, you need pallets of food.
Yes.
But we still need food drives. One of the benefits of food drives in a community is truly the awareness. When people participate in a food drive, indirectly they're sort of learning about hunger. They're participating and giving back. And so there's a intrinsic value there that, while it might not source the pallets and pallets of food, it's about helping people understand that hunger is a real issue in our community. So that's important. I don't want to undermine it at all. And we really appreciate, we get a lot of food drives every year from a number of different community groups. But bulk of our food, probably about 6 million pounds of it, comes from what we call retail damage. Nothing wrong with the food, most of it's perfectly fine, and what's not fine we throw away. But let's say you're shopping in Wegmans and you're pushing your cart and you're not paying attention, so you run into the cereal boxes and they fall off and they dent a little bit on the corner. Well, Wegmans it's not going to sell that, so they would pull it for donation. So we get quite a lot of product. When there's more traffic in the stores, there's more damage, can drops, etc. That all comes to FoodLink. And Wegmans is a huge donor of FoodLink, and we really appreciate their support because, being with Wegmans in our backyard, they've supported FoodLink for years and years in donating their retail damage to FoodLink. So that's a huge portion of our product. We also get probably about 1.5 million pounds from the USDA commodities. We receive and distribute some of the commodities. Manufacturer case products. So we have a number of food manufacturers in upstate New York. Barilla, Ledestries, Weigel's, Seneca Foods, the Alpino plant that just opened in Batavia with all the yogurt now. So all of those, as they're making the product that they make, they might change their label, they might do an overrun, they might say, actually we overproduce too much pasta, we're not going to sell it, whatever reason, perfectly good stuff, they just send it to us for donation. So we get about almost 2 million pounds through that. We have trucks en route every day, 5 trucks through our food bank that are going door to door to the Walmarts, picking up at the back door Walmarts things that couldn't sell. BJ's, Sam's, Targets, the superstores. And we get about 2 million pounds of food just by doing the store pickups every year.
I wanted to ask this question. If they, for instance, if a Walmart's or a BJ's had this surplus from damaged goods or whatever we call that, would they be able to get a cash back for that? Or would they just have to accept the loss? The reason why I'm asking that, because if they were to receive cash for those damaged goods, once again, I want the viewing audience to know that here's a Walmart's or a Wegmans, and instead of them, if there is this cash back for these damaged goods, they're giving it to this community so we can show once again of how this community is sustaining itself.
Well, and I you know, want to call out Wegmans in that regard. There actually is, well, there is an IRS code that allows the company to write off 1/2 of their unrealized gross profit on an inventoried item if it's given to a 501c3 charity for the care of the ill, the infant, and the needy. So they can essentially write it off when they do their taxes. Some companies still sell that retail damage to a tertiary market. Then it goes to like the big lots or a flea market, et cetera. And a lot of the companies like Walmart and some of the other stores, they still do that. When Wegmans actually donates everything, which is huge because they could sell it to a tertiary market and they don't. The stuff we pick up from the Walmart stores and the BJ's and the Sam's and the Targets and the like is actually their perishable stuff that's close to date. Bread, eggs, milk, meat, vegetables, fruit. It's not expired yet, but it's coming so close to date, or to buy, not even expiry date, sorry, but a best by date, sell by date. And they might say there's 1 week left on these eggs, pull them. So they're perfectly good. We flip them you know, it takes us 24 hours, we'll have them out the door. Because our goal is to make sure that anything we pick up doesn't go in the trash can, it should go to someone that can eat it, that's hungry, that, you know, we want to save as much of it as we can. So that's the kind of stuff, we handle a lot of perishable stuff that is actually close to date, and that's the kind of stuff we pick up from the Walmarts, BJ's, Targets, Sam's, and the like, about 2 million pounds of that.
And you can turn the food over just that quickly?
We can turn it over that quickly. I mean, we have some programs like our mobile pantry program that runs almost every day, where if there is, we'll look at what we have in inventory that day, and every day you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes, you know, it's like Christmas. So you're like, what do we got? And then you do the best you can, and you want to make sure that you throw away the bad stuff, keep the good stuff, stage it. So we'll put a lot of stuff that, like things that maybe have a week best by date on a mobile pantry because we know it'll be consumed immediately. And so we have a lot of different mechanisms to do that. Our goal is to not throw anything away because that's not why we're here. I forgot to mention too, when I talked about products that we carry, we also purchase about 5 million pounds of food.
As well, you purchase food as well.
We have to purchase it as well because we don't get everything we need and donated. And so we'll look at our inventory and say, what do we not have? And if we don't have it, we're going to go buy it. Because when we go out to buy...
As examples?
Maybe we have a lot of pasta, but we have no sauce. And we'll say, we need some sauce. Because what are they going to eat with this pasta? Or we might, you know, one thing we don't get a lot of donated, meat, protein, maybe eggs. We buy eggs, cheese. Different things that our members say they really want. You know, the interesting thing about people is we don't really eat a lot of diverse stuff. We kind of like, I mean, if you think about your own refrigerator, you go back for the same stuff.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's true of everyone. I mean, there's maybe some niche food or some spices or some what of, you know, how you like, but pretty much we all eat, you know, so you have chicken breasts. Everyone can use those. You might cook them differently, but we know that chicken breasts are going to be mainstay for our network. So things like that, we'll go out and we buy it. But when we buy, we actually go through a competitive bidding process. We send it out to about 50 different suppliers, and we might purchase 20 pallets of something. So the price point on that item is significantly lower than what it would be at retail, which means that we're stretching our food dollars further, which is good for our whole network. Our goal is to keep all of our prices down and to do the most we can with the limited resources that we have.
And how do you generate, or how does Foodlink generate money to be able to go out and purchase, to make these kinds of purchases? Do you get donations? Is it from donations, or
no,
are you certainly having a garage sale?
Garage sale. That's a good question. Well, that's a good question. We do get quite a lot of donations. And one of our biggest campaigns is the Check Out Hunger campaign, which runs in Wegmans and then in Tops and some of the smaller stores every year, and we generate quite a lot of money through that campaign. It's the easiest way for people to give to Foodlink every year. With the purchase food, we have a number of different members of Foodlink, like the soup kitchens, pantries, and shelters. We also have some non-emergency programs like daycares, senior centers, group homes. And if you're a non-emergency center, you're a nonprofit organization that does human service work. You're not an emergency food provider. We actually resell that food to you, the purchased food we resell. Now, we're a nonprofit. We're not generating a profit. So we need to cover our cost of what it takes us to do the work that we do. We got trucks on the road. We got millions of dollars of liability insurance. We have freezers on, coolers on, lights on. It takes a lot to do this. So when we resell, we're truly, our markup always below retail and covers the margin that it took us to do the work that we do.
Okay.
We run a number of grants, what we call third-party lines of credit, to cover the cost for a large portion of that cost for all of our emergency providers. So it's a bit complicated. It's truly the insides of food banking, but we make it work.
Would you just speak on hunger? We talked about the food, but I think that people really don't, we may not get it, we may not believe it, but I was watching something, I think a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about hunger, world hunger. And I mean, I was sitting there amazed and awe, if you will, because it's hard for me to believe that in this day and time that we have this many people hungry, and I don't think that we as a community really get what hunger is about. I don't think we understand that dynamics of hunger and what all that entails.
Right. No, that's a good, that raises a really interesting, because hunger for us is different than what you see on, if you're looking at a famine on a different continent, maybe what hunger might look like there. It does look a little different here. And our society's done a very good job at kind of hiding the face of hunger. We don't want to look at it.
Yes.
In our region, about 1 in 10 people experiences hunger every year. And so if you think 1 out of 10, that's how many people do you pass every day? And you think at any point, so when we talk about hunger, basically we're talking about food insecurity. And that means that if you're food insecure, you do not have access to the quality and quantity of calories that you need to lead a healthy, productive life. And I emphasize quality and quantity because they're both really important. Today, we can speak about something, we'll call them food swamps. Sometimes they call them food deserts, like there's no food. But what we know is that there is food. It's just really bad food. Yes. So if you're hungry and you have limited resources, you might be able to afford calorie-dense, nutrient-void foods, chips, cookies, French fries, right? But what is that doing to our society besides making us incredibly unhealthy? And it's not giving you all sorts of other complicated diseases, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, etc. But yet people are still food insecure. When they go to bed, their stomach's still growling, and it's because they didn't have a complete meal. And it's the hunger-obesity paradox that we're facing now, that many people that are actually food insecure may be overweight, and it's because they're eating the wrong food, because they have access to the wrong foods. And in part, it's generational. We've forgotten how to cook. You might just go get Big Macs every day if you're a single mom and you're working, and you got kids, and you're like, I'm just going to go through the drive-thru. And how do you criticize for that? I mean, it's what's available, and maybe people don't have knives, they don't have a stove. How are you supposed to take a squash and do anything with it? And so the types of food, right now, I mean, we live in upstate New York, right? There are farms everywhere. You go outside the city limits and all you see are farms. And food is grown there. And yet a lot of the food, squash, for example, we get it in, and you try to move it in the city, and people are like, what is that? I don't know what to do with that. And fair enough question, right? But those are the things that are local, that are right here for us. And there's really, when we talk about a broken food system, that's part of the problem. That as a society, we don't know what to do with that anymore. We don't know what to do with the good food that's available right here.
I think, from listening to you, I think another component of this, when I was growing up, at 6 o'clock, you had to be in the house to eat dinner, because if you weren't in the house at 6 o'clock, but that was part of the structure.
Right.
And that was part of the family unit. That food, being at that table, right. Yes, it was the eating, but it was gathering. This is where at the end of the day, this is where everyone, and I mean the entire family, at 6 o'clock, we were there.
Communing.
And exactly.
Sharing, yeah.
And then with the advent of the fast food restaurants, it knocked out that, which also upset the balance of family and eating together.
Right.
And now to compound that with this economy and not being able to have the ability to provide these things, right. Knowing that there is a food link, right. Where one can go and receive this assistance to, if nothing else, try to mend this family or help keep this family together, although they may be having other problems, but yet this is one thing that they can still do as a family.
Absolutely. I mean, we hope that it's our contribution to rebuilding what's broken. And Foodlink has many programs, nutrition education programs that we run. I wish they were bigger. I wish we could do more serve more people every day. But the nutrition education, we have 2 different programs. We call them, well, actually 3. Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables, Cooking Matters, and Kids Can. And all of them are a little bit different from one another to tailor the needs of the individuals receiving the classes. But they all focus on eating healthy food, cooking. Like the Cooking Matters class is a 6-week class that gets in there with mothers and children or families or just kids. It can be tailored, or teens. We bring the vegetables, we show people how to prepare them. People get to cut them, try them, taste them, learn about them, really helping to re-educate people as to how to use because you're right, it's like a generational thing. We as a society have stopped cooking.
That's a television show.
Yeah, is it really?
I mean, I could do a television.
Oh, right, you could.
Because now, that's one of the things, that is such a very vital point, because if we could teach people how to cook,
right.
You'll see that once you develop the technique of cooking and developing taste, right. You can put anything together and make it good. And we are under the impression that because we think that a filet mignon, I mean, this is what we've been told, so this is what the brain thinks, that in order for something to be good, it has got to have this label. Whereas, I mean, I can take some butternut squash and do some fantastic things with it.
You can. I mean, and that's when people try it and they're like, wow, this is actually really good. And this was easy to make. So then we give a bag of food for them to go home and try the recipe at home. Our Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables program works at the pantry or at the soup kitchen as people are coming. So they might, if you go to Wegmans, people are doing taste testings in Wegmans, like, oh, you want to try this kale? You want to try, and they have little cups, and kind of the same idea, but at a soup kitchen or at a pantry to encourage people to take product that they maybe would not have taken otherwise, and to really expand their palate and their understanding of local fresh food. So it's a challenge, but we know we're making progress, and it's just one day at a time. And there's a lot of great community partners that we work with to make this happen. Right now, one of the big things in Rochester, there's a lot of discussion going around corner stores and revitalizing corner stores to be more of a community resource, going back to this concept of food swamps. And so Foodlink is working with some corner stores now to discuss helping to feed into their supply chain healthier product. So corner stores happen to be the back door for so many people, and so kids go in there and they just grab a bag of chips. So is there a healthier option, considering then that they are truly right in the middle of the many communities in Rochester? And so something Foodlink is taking really seriously, and we're really looking at many different innovative ways that we can impact on the problem.
I just tell you, I'm just really so thankful that you took the time to come in and explain to the viewing audience, because I myself got a great deal of education from listening to you speak, and to know that when we're talking about the distribution of food, I mean, we're just not talking about the distribution of putting something in someone's stomach, but we're also trying to fulfill this individual to make them feel like an individual. Absolutely. And I think that that's just a beautiful thing. Whoever the person was that came up with this idea, because that was the other thing I was wondering, because I'm a business owner. Right. I mean, how do you come up with an idea? Right. I'm going to start a food bank.
Yeah, well, it was Tom Ferraro's brainchild, and I think he started it without even knowing what he was doing. Yes. He just saw the need and saw the incredible amount of food waste in our country, and said, let's just put these two together. And it's really what they call, social entrepreneurism. So it's entrepreneurism, but it's addressing a social problem. And he's built FoodLink from that small seed into the organization that we are today.
Well, two things. It's usually when you don't know what you're doing is when you're successful.
Exactly. Right.
And then the other part of it is that I just think that this is where we're going in the future. We're going to start seeing more social conscious corporations and businesses starting to take a stronger hold. This thing of greed and, just ripping corporations apart for greed. I think that day is coming to an end. And, I mean, it's forcing us. I mean, we may not be doing it because we've become better people, but because of what we've done, the destruction it has caused, it has forced us to do this. And I think by the same token, because of the problems that we are faced with this country, the dynamics of everything that has happened, the weakened economy, has now brought into existence where there is truly a need for a food link. Is there a website that we can go to?
Absolutely. www.foodlinkny.org. And if anyone is listening to this and is actually experiencing food insecurity or is in need of emergency food, if they go on our website, there's a button that says "Need Food," and you can enter your website, your zip code, and the list of providers near your community will pop up. Or alternatively, they can call 211, which is Lifeline Assistance. It's just like dialing 911, but it's 211.
Okay.
And it's a 24-hour hotline, and the individual that answers that is on the other line would ask you about where you live and your specific needs, and then would direct you to certain organizations to best fit your needs. And so, I mean, 211 Lifeline is a great community resource that we have here, or again, on our website, they can access the Need Food button.
Any closing statements?
No, I just appreciate you having me come on. It's been real nice to be able to do this.
Once again, I really thank you for coming on, because this has been very informative, and it gave us a chance to give this community a better understanding that this is more than just about food. Mm-hmm. This is the responsibility of... I came across a saying just last week. It said that independence is middle-class blasphemy. We are all connected together.
We are.
Every single one of us on Earth, and which your organization is doing is proving that point.
Well, thank you
so very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. My name is James Young. I look forward to seeing you next week. Be blessed and remember, it's a new day.